Welcome back. It is the Flow Friday Sports Show here on Flow FM, and we're taking a break from our regular programming and we're focusing on some other areas, which means that it's time for us to take a look at the success of Craig Goodwin, at least through the lens of his father, Tony Goodwin, who's been good enough to give us some time. And this is right off the back of Craig Goodwin winning the Johnny Warren Medal, the most outstanding A-League men's player of the season. And this comes off the back of his phenomenal World Cup experience as well back last November. Tony Goodwin, so good to have you on the line. How are you?
Yeah, very good, Alice. Thanks for having me on.
Well, there's so much to get through, Tony. So firstly, I just want to start with Ange Postecoglou. He's going to be managing Tottenham Hotspur. What a journey it's been now. Ange Postecoglou was the manager of the Australian national team throughout the mid-2010s. Craig Goodwin, often being in the Socceroos setup, he played one game under Ange against England back in 2016 in a friendly game. So just looking at Ange's story, it's pretty similar in many ways to your son Craig's story. Just that classic underdog feel about it, Tony. But Ange now, he's gone on to a level that we've never seen an Australian manager get to before, and it is just so exciting. So what do you make of that as a football fan? First and foremost yourself, Ange Postecoglou now managing at the top level.
For Australian football, I think it's massive. For Ange, it's obviously massive, but he's done the hard yards right from the days, prior to South Melbourne, right up until now. And I think it'll help the world take notice of Australian coaches and more of players. But to see him coaching a club as big as Tottenham, I think is amazing, because if you look, a lot of our coaches, if they go over there, it's usually third, fourth division type units. And you're set up for failure because they just don't have the money to provide you with the assets you need to get your job done. But Ange has proved himself with Yokohama and obviously with Celtic in a major way. All the doubters when he started and the hate that he got, they all soon disappeared. But getting the gig at Tottenham, that's the pinnacle. If he can be successful there, then God knows what can happen for his career from that point on. But I think it will now benefit Australian football in a massive way and make more of the world take notice of us on the back of obviously the Socceroos performances at the World Cup. I think the planets have aligned on that front for coaches and players too. So hopefully a little bit more focus on our game in this country and our players and our coaches.
Well, it's often said, Tony, that no one can really read Ange Postecoglou. Your son played in many training camps with Ange, obviously played that one friendly under him as well, but certainly would have experienced Ange as a coach. Even arguably the greatest ever Socceroo, Tim Cahill, said you just never know what he's thinking at any given time, and that's one of his ultimate sort of strengths as a manager, just commands respect because players are always in the dark about his sort of decision-making. So has Craig ever sort of divulged to you what Ange was like as a coach during the experiences he had in those Socceroos training camps back in those years?
Yeah, he has actually. I used to say to him about, the lack of game time as such, but Craig just says, he said, look, to be honest, he said, he's an unbelievable coach. He says he knows how to get his word across in all the training sessions. He says he knows his tactics. The discipline is there. I think for Craig's benefit, you could probably say, okay, he may not have got much game time under him, but what he learnt there to go on top of what we know how he's developed as a player, I think has culminated in a big way in how he is today, especially as a captain. So I think those years were probably an apprenticeship for Craig, even though he was probably a late bloomer in his age for starting. But he always said that Ange was a great coach, and his methods of getting the word across and his explanations of them were first class.
There we go. Well, we'll move along because it really is all about Craig Goodwin right now. What a period of time it's been over the last 24 or so months. I mean, overall, he's had an amazing career, let's be honest, Tony, but these last sort of 2 years have felt like a blur. Winning the Johnny Warren Medal, the finest performing player in the country domestically, but also that World Cup over in Qatar. Tony, it was just, the way you described it on air, still surreal for you being in that stadium watching Craig Goodwin score against the current world champions at the time, France. It's just the experiences have just built up in such a quick period of time, and it'd be impossible to think that he's not overawed by it, but by all accounts, he's not overawed by it, and he's just going to keep going, and he's just going to keep kicking goals. So what have your conversations been like with Craig, and what was it like to see him awarded with the Johnny Warren Medal? I've got to say, Tony, almost in a way a bit sort of anticlimactic because everyone expected it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people also expected it last year. Well, probably more in shock that he didn't get it. So this time we were a bit apprehensive that he would get it, even though we know he should. But it was funny because I was actually just sitting down in my lounge and Craig's partner Caitlin was there, obviously, and she's texting me like, he's in, I think he's equal second after 4 rounds, I think it was. And then she said, he's sitting first on 17 rounds, 2 in front of Lecky. And I thought, well, that's when about Lecky got injured, but Borrello came home with a wet sail, so this is going to be really interesting. But I thought they'd do a countdown for the last few rounds, and they actually just announced it for the last, I think, 4 rounds. So you didn't see the countdown part of it. But she sort of like said to me, here we go. And I thought, is this here we go for the next round, or here we go, they're about to announce it? And then she had all these crying eyes, sort of little emojis. And I'm thinking, did he win it or did he lose it? And then, of course, she never replied. But obviously she was caught up in the whole emotion of what got announced when it did. And I found out because they posted the graphic that he'd won it on Twitter. And then, of course, I was like, is this real? Is this official? I haven't heard from her yet, but that's exactly how it panned out. So I was in a little bit of shock as well, obviously, but more elated for him. He's worked for it so hard over all those years, ever since he was 4 years old. That's all he's ever wanted to do. But it's crazy. And I know he's earned it. It was great to see. It doesn't overawe him. He doesn't always expect it. He said they're nice, even the World Cup. Just to go there, shake hands and meet players like Messi. He sees them as boxes to tick in his career, but he's never overawed by the moment. I think all the years of what he had to go through has probably mellowed that side of him. So now he appreciates it every time he gets the opportunity rather than is overawed by it. But I think it's just an amazing year. I mean, it's a pity we couldn't go on with Adelaide for the grand final. But again, we achieved a lot this year, and we've got a lot of young guys in their inexperience. So they're getting a life's lesson as well, and Craig enjoys being part of that.
Well, I'm glad you went to the formative years there, Tony, because from Manapara to Messi, it's an amazing story, and a lot of people don't know about the struggle. So take us back to the very early career moments for Craig. You're obviously his father. You've been there since the very beginning, overseeing all this. And it's just one of those rare sort of stories where for a young fella, is just nothing's ever able to knock him down, and here he now is, an absolute pillar of the game in Australia right now. So just take us all the way back. I believe Manapara, is that where you sort of grew up as the family? And I know it was his first club, but growing up there in the northern suburbs of Adelaide, and just take us through that journey if you can.
Yeah, it's like how long you got sort of thing. We were at Craigmore at the time, and Daniel, his elder brother, was playing Manapara from when he was 6, and Craig was obviously a sports nut. He just was never seen without a ball, so obviously wanted to follow his brother. So we got Craig into Manapara at 4 years old. Craig was never without a ball at 2. All the relatives used to say, "What the hell is he ever without that bloody ball?" But that's all he ever wanted. And even at school, they asked him, preschool, what do you want to be when you grow up, to all the young kids? And everyone else was saying the usual professions. And Craig just pops up, professional footballer. Oh, you've got to be really good and dedicated. Yeah, I know, that's what I want to do. So he's just always had that focus. he's always said in his career he's never had a plan B, so he's never known what he's wanted to do other than play professional football. So Manapara was only just down the road. So, we started there. The early years were basically you have to fall in love with the game first. Otherwise, that way learning's easy. If you force players to do things and they're not interested, you can kill it for them. So I started off coaching along with another guy, Terry Dodd. He was much older, so he'd become a bit of a surrogate grandfather for Craig because my dad died when he was 59 and Craig was only a year old. And so it was good. It was a good partnership. And then we had Tony Steele, another coach. We came together and formed a team at under eights. And that's when it started to happen. And we had some success in the different levels, grand finals and the Challenge Cup and stuff. And then Craig made like the zone teams for ED, the JSA. And then he did actually went to the trials. I think he failed in one of them, but then he got accepted into the under 13s. But when he was in the 14s, that's when it gets serious, and he did get cut from that squad. Three smallest players on the same night got cut. And the process is that when they go to the Coffs Harbour, I guess, nationals, at the time, it was the selection criteria was basically you've got to be 6 foot tall, you're 14, built like a monster, run like crazy. But obviously Craig didn't fit that criteria and he was cut, but he never lost sight of what's coming next. So he just worked hard, kept on getting better. And I went to Para Hills for a while, and then we left there, went to Enfield, and then Jimmy Zakinis actually spoke to Craig one day and said to Craig, he called him over, and Craig didn't know who he was at the time, and he said, "Get the hell out of this club, mate. Get yourself to a Super League club." He said, "I can see what you've got to offer." So he did. He ended up at Raiders with John Duthie as coach out there, and he excelled. But, along that pathway as well, he missed out on Adelaide United's youth team selection twice, even though Crystal Palace in England wanted him, which he missed out because he was 3 months too old. And then Inverness in Scotland, obviously, getting an apprenticeship and then losing it because their academy got culled on the night before he's due to leave to save money when their first team got relegated. But again, he was upset, but he just goes, "No, I just got to get on with it." So he did well at Raiders. And while he was at Raiders, that's when Arthur Pappas was made aware of his, existence through Todd McSorley, who played with Craig at Raiders. And he wanted Todd to go back to Melbourne, but to play with Oakley with him, but he said that he couldn't for his own personal reasons. But he asked him, "Can you name a couple of good young midfielders?" And Todd recommended Craig. So Craig was lucky enough to have a video on his Facebook that he put together from Matt Adamopoulos at the time with Full On Football. And he saw it and basically give me the kid's number. And it went from there. And that was the big change. So it all goes to Oakley and everything happened. And then John Aloisi was made aware of him, saw him at a trial game, signed him straight away for Melbourne Hearts youth team. And I guess if you look at the rest of it, the history, everyone's more, I guess, up to date and common with the knowledge of that pathway from there. But the early years were full of a lot of rejection, a lot of hard work, a lot of good people to help along the way. But where it's culminated now is just, it's we've seen it, we understand it, but it's still mind-boggling. It probably is for a lot of people, but it just proves that if you don't quit, anything can happen. Work hard and don't quit.
It is an absolutely amazing story, Tony, and we're really thankful that we got at least a bit of a teaser of it, I guess, here on the Fly FM airwaves today. Tony Goodwin, you got plenty to be proud about, and it's nowhere near over yet. Craig's still got plenty of chapters to write, of course, and it's just been such an amazing couple of seasons. So exciting as a fan to see this guy who's just sort of flown under the radar in many parts of his journey to now being a genuine superstar of the game here in Australia. Tony Goodwin, the father of Craig Goodwin, recently announced Johnny Warren medalist of the A-League men's competition. So good to have you here on the Flow FM airwaves. We'll have to speak to you again sometime soon. keep enjoying the ride, and thank you for everything you've done in producing Craig Goodwin for us.
No worries, Alice. It's a pleasure. It's I said there's a lot more detail in those earlier years, but like I said, how long have you got? But it's a great lesson for other young players coming through. But he did say, though, I think it was after the awards, that he would trade a lot of it for a premiership again with Adelaide, because it's the team for him. It's that camaraderie of the boys and everything. I think he'd really love to tick that box of a grand final win with Adelaide and the lads that he's playing with there, and Carl as well.
Well, we'll have to wait and see whether he can achieve it in the next season or so. I'm sure he'll get close again. Tony Goodwin, thanks so much for your time.
No worries, Alice. Thank you.